Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Now, this video is about Illinois, but it's a video that's for all of you, okay? Listen, when I was growing up as a kid, my dad used to say to me, Billy, anytime you think you have it really bad, you don't have to look too far to find somebody else that's got it way worse for you. And for those of you who live in blue states that are hell-bent on civilian disarmament, unless you live in the state of Illinois, you actually do not live in the most nefarious, most sinister, most evil state there is. And when it comes to Illinois, the thing that I've noticed about it is it's not so much what they do to their people, which is pretty terrible to begin with, but it's how they do it. It is absolutely one of the most tyrannical ways that you will ever see laws implemented. So today, let's get you all educated and let's talk about Illinois, the most sinister state in America. Okay, America, we're talking about Illinois. Hello to all my good friends out there in Illinois. Listen, the people in Illinois are fantastic. They deserve far better, and nobody in supposedly a free country deserves what the state of Illinois residents get. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is House Bill 4144, a piece of legislation which apparently started off as a bill that had to do with replenishing and redoing a bunch of fire hydrants. How timely. But you see, House Bill 4144 has been passed into law, and it has been passed into law as a radical restructuring of Illinois' red flag laws, as well as other types of civil and domestic violence protection orders, all allowing the state of Illinois, shockingly, the state of Illinois, to be able to confiscate way more firearms than they were under the previous legislation. Okay, America, so you understand in a nutshell what happened. Under previous Illinois law, if a person was subject to some type of firearm forfeiture order, they could temporarily transfer the firearms to another responsible individual, another adult who was lawfully allowed to possess firearms. And then once the issues were cleared up, that individual could theoretically transfer back to the original owner of their firearms. This new law says, nope, under any circumstance whatsoever, you will always be surrendering the firearms to law enforcement. And what do you think, Illinois, is going to be the chances that any law enforcement agency in the state of Illinois is going to be excited to give their guns back to that person? Oh, and what happens if any of those firearms and or magazines that they accept are not registered on the Illinois State Police Department's unconstitutional gun registry? But I want you to understand how this was done, America, okay? So House Bill 4144 is kicking around. It's a bill about fire hydrants. No one's paying any attention. It's a lame duck session. They got literally like a day's worth of business. And 6 minutes before this bill goes to committee, a representative introduces a striker amendment. And for those of you who don't understand what a striker amendment is, all it really does is it strikes every word that comes after the number of the bill and then gets to replace it with any new law. And so this piece of legislation that dealt with fire hydrants 6 minutes before it went to committee was suddenly turned into an entirely different piece of legislation, which now gave the state of Illinois massive authority to confiscate firearms. But guess what? It goes into committee, and despite the fact that there's a handful of people who are able to comment on it, and all of them are against it, it comes out of committee with a recommendation to pass. Shocker, right? Not really. But then guess what? Because it goes immediately from committee to the Senate floor that night, and it's voted on, and it's passed, and it's sent to the governor's desk. Which means that nobody in the state of Illinois ever had an opportunity to see this legislation coming, and nobody in the state of Illinois ever had an opportunity to comment on it, and now this is good law. And you sit there and you go, wow, that's really sinister. That's really nefarious. Well, guess what? It's not unique, because let's go back in our time machine just a couple of years ago to the Protect Illinois Communities Act. And what we're going to talk about there is House Bill 5522. Because for those of you who were geeking out on the channel way back in the day or following guys like Greg Bishop, you may recall that House Bill 5522 had a bunch of boring regulations as it related to insurance forms and amending insurance forms to update them to other types of insurance regulations that were existent in the state of Illinois. It was the most boring piece of legislation one could ever read. But then in 72 hours, that horrible, boring piece of legislation, 5522, well, a striker amendment was introduced to that. All the language was taken out, and Illinois' full-on assault weapon ban was supplanted in its place. And then it passes the House, it passes the Senate, and it gets signed by the governor all in less than 72 hours. And at no point did the residents of Illinois not only not have an ability to comment on the law, they didn't even know it was coming until it was too late. And so what I want you to understand, America, is like out here in the People's Republic of Washington or down there in crazy town, California, at least there, they make it look like you're getting representative government. Yeah, no, they'll actually introduce the bill at the very beginning of the legislative session. Sometimes they'll even pre-file the bill, and then they will send it to committee. And sometimes it comes out of committee and it gets a couple little tweaks, but of course it doesn't fix any of the big problems. And then it actually gets put on the floor, and it's debated, and then it's passed out of one chamber, and it gets sent over to another chamber, and it goes into some committee, which granted, it's just a rubber stamp committee, but at least it gives the appearance of fairness. And then it goes to that chamber's floor, and it's debated there, and then it's voted on. In Washington State, every single piece of gun control legislation that we've had shoved down our throat in the last dozen years, and there's been a lot, every single one of them, we saw the bill at the beginning of the legislative session, and almost in all instances, the bill was passed at the very end of the legislative session. And did the folks of Washington at least have an opportunity to be heard? Yeah, nobody was listening to them, but at least they gave the appearance that they were being heard. And the same goes down there in crazy California. Legislators will introduce legislation at the start of the session because they know they got the votes to pass it. And Illinois, why your state legislature decides to not only disarm you, but to do it in such a vile manner, almost to like rub your nose in it, almost to treat you as though you are the peasants that they in fact believe you are. That is really what's most offensive, because the truth of the matter is had this legislation been introduced at the beginning of any Illinois state legislative session, there are plenty of votes in Springfield to get any type of civilian disarmament legislation passed. They don't need to play these evil and sinister games, but they do it because they hate you. So America, and for those of you who live in states like Washington, Oregon, California, New York, New Jersey, Minnesota, Colorado, states like that. Anytime you think that you are living in the absolute worst state humanly imaginable to try to exercise your Second Amendment rights, unless you have an Illinois address, that is not the case. Okay, like I said, the story came from our good friend Greg Bishop over there at the Center Square, so we're going to link it up down below so you can geek out on it for yourself. And listen, if you're not following Bishop on air, you're cheating yourself, Illinois, so we'll put all the information down there so you can do that as well. If you got any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now, but if you don't, that's okay. That information's down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing around here, cool. All you got to do is click on that link right there and tell us all about it. If you want to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, the ability to do all of that is down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe. Hey everybody, Bill from Washington Gun Law. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to all of our viewers, especially all my good friends out there in Illinois. I have almost as many subscribers in Illinois as I do in any other state. I love all of you. Thank you very much. As you know, or maybe you don't, Washington Gun Law was lucky enough to be nominated as one of the 5 finalists for Top Voices of the 2A at the 2025 Gundy Awards starting next week, right at the beginning of SHOT Show. So I just wanted to extend to all of you my deepest gratitude. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for geeking out with us. Thank you so much for supporting Washington Gun Law. And to all those folks out in Illinois, you guys keep fighting and stay safe.